Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Daughter Dear podcast. I'm Simone Canego.
And I'm Olivia Canego.
And the Daughter Dear's podcast is a podcast where we have authentic mother daughter conversations where we talk about what you're thinking inside your head. And sometimes you're too afraid to talk about it. So some of our conversations are really funny, some of them are deep. And I would say today is going to be a deep one because we're going to be talking about imposter syndrome and how it's affected our lives and how we continue to try to push past it.
Yeah. I guess,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, guess we should just jump right in. There's no funny jokes here, honestly.
No, there's no funny joke. So I'm going to read you a definition of imposter syndrome. So, because I was shocked how many people actually don't know what it is. And I don't know why I'm shocked, but I still feel like it seems like it's a pretty commonplace term these days. And there's a lot of talk in the media about it. But let me start with the definition. So, imposter syndrome is the condition of feeling anxious and not experiencing success internally, despite being high performing in external, objective ways. This condition often results in people feeling like a fraud or a phony and doubting their abilities. So, it's interesting. We'll talk about statistics in a minute, but I think so many people suffer from this. Now, one of the things I was reading about was that a lot of people are saying stop pushing imposter syndrome on women. So, and what they're saying by that is that it's not necessarily the imposter syndrome that it's what got them to imposter syndrome. It's
I
the
mean,
the
yeah.
bias, it's the negative workplace, all these things then create this imposter syndrome. So, but
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
talking about it anyways.
I just from like a standpoint as a woman, I don't think that I came up with the imposter syndrome I have by myself. I think that it's just you're being told these things and you see these negative stereotypes and you're seeing a lack of women represented in the field that you want to work in. And then you experience it in the workplace, just people doubting your abilities, or even in classrooms, doubting your abilities just because of your sex. And so I definitely think like that's an interesting take, and I'm sure it's true because I don't know if I would be in the same position I am now if I was a man. Actually, I know I wouldn't be. I know I would be doing something completely different.
It's very interesting to think about it that way.
Yeah.
Um, but the idea of imposter syndrome itself, and I can see like what people are saying, like don't push it on us. It's other things that we're dealing with that has led to this. So it's that
Mm-hmm.
the workplace that isn't conducive to stuff. And like I said, we'll talk about statistics in a minute, but I actually found it really interesting that there's actually 5 types of imposter syndrome.
Yeah, I
Um,
didn't honestly know that, which I
yeah,
think is why um it's hard to necessarily like fit yourself into the small box of what of imposter syndrome. And if you just look at it like, well, I feel like a phony or a fraud, you might not feel necessarily like a phony or a fraud, but you probably fall into these or one of these 5 types. So I like that it's like an expanding definition beyond just that.
yeah. So, and we can talk more about each type. You have them in front of you too. The perfectionist,
Yes.
the natural genius, the rugged individualist or soloist, the expert, and the superhero. So let's start with the perfectionist. So we know plenty of people like
Yeah.
this, right? I want to say your sister is one of them who,
I was thinking both sisters
yeah,
at some.
both sisters actually. You're right. You're right.
I was
They,
not me though. I was never a perfectionist. I was a scrape by.
oh, you weren't a scrape by, but okay. You did
Whatever.
very well and you're still doing really well. Come on, girl. Um, so the perfectionist, you focus primarily on how you do things, often to the point where you demand perfection of yourself in every aspect of life. So you're going to criticize yourself for small mistakes and feel ashamed of any kind of failures. And you might even avoid new things if you believe you can't do them perfectly the first time. I know a lot of people like this, right? They're not
Yeah.
willing to, that fear of failure just kind of, it completely prevents them from even trying something.
Dominating. It's
Yeah.
definitely takes over your life.
And I want to say too that imposter syndrome doesn't just apply to women. It applies to all
100%.
people. There's definitely more statistics that show it's higher in women. And again, that probably goes back to the workplace bias or, et cetera, et
Yeah, the
cetera.
patriarchy
Right.
dominated society. I mean, that's just the way that things are built. But that there are definitely men and others out there that don't fit like they feel are they have imposter syndrome and they feel like they're outsiders in the workplace or in any place.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to that you, no matter how successful you are, you don't believe that you got there because of your hard work. You think that it was luck. You think that you're a phony. And it's honestly one of those crazy things because when you think about it, like you have to work really hard to get to anywhere in life these
Yeah.
days. And not that in the past you didn't, you of course you did, but it's interesting to see how even though you're working really hard, you still don't believe that you got there because you did a great job.
I think the way you put it, the idea of getting there because of luck is how I feel and how I think a lot of my generation and my friends feel is that we've had everything handed to us. And in some ways, that's how I feel, even though like you guys didn't do anything to get me my internship. Like, and there's a lot of positions in my life where I just did it by myself. It honestly has just felt a little too easy, or I don't remember how hard it was. So then I feel as though it's just been giving to me. It's luck of the draw. Um, I don't know. And it definitely, that feeling diminishes all of the accomplishments that I've had because well, it happens to everybody, or, oh, well, I just got lucky.
Yeah. So it's interesting that you said that because the next one is the natural genius. And you're going to laugh when I say, like, I kind of feel like you fit into this
Oh yeah,
category.
actually, I was gonna say that about myself, looking at all these five types, that I am definitely the natural genius. So, according to this, it's you've spent your life picking up new skills with little effort and believe you should understand new materials and processes right away. Your belief that competent people can handle anything with little difficulty leads you to feel like a fraud when you have a hard time. And if something doesn't come easy to you or you fail to succeed on your first try, you might feel ashamed and embarrassed. And that's totally how I feel. Not that I'm this natural genius. Like, I'm not the smartest person you'll ever meet. I'm pretty smart. I'm not the
Yes,
smartest
you are.
you'll ever
Yes, you
meet.
are.
And I recognize that I'm smart. I know to some people I come off as very ditzy, but that's a persona I put on to avoid any, actually to avoid that feeling of embarrassment when I might not get something right. Or if people look to me as a genius, then they're going to expect me to get something right where I might not know it.
Well, okay. So I want to unpack that a little bit because you pretend you act ditzy so that people don't hold you to this higher level because you're afraid
100%.
if you make a mistake. That's fascinating because you're not a ditzy person at all.
I definitely, yeah, but I come off at ditzy, and also just like my basic mannerisms. Like, people tend to think I'm staring off into space thinking nothing, but I'm actually probably thinking something very complex. It would just take me too long to
Mm.
explain. And then you'd be like, well, why did you get there? And it's, I don't know, it just like comes with that feeling of I'm always thinking, and I'm always, there's something always going on in my head. I just feel a little bit embarrassed to explain it a lot of the times.
It's fascinating. Oh, and
Yeah,
let me say here we are not therapists. We are not
not at all.
psychiatrists or psychologists. So all the things that we're talking about are
Yeah.
things that we've read and our personal experiences. So we're not prescribing
Yeah, I'm
anything to
not giving
anyone.
any advice.
Yeah.
Besides go out and live your life. I've been doing a lot of that recently, and just like living freely has helped me a lot.
Okay, good. Okay, the next one, the rugged individualist or soloist. I kind of feel like I fall into
That's
this category.
you
Yeah.
for sure.
You believe you should be able to handle everything solo. If you can't achieve success independently, you consider yourself unworthy. Asking someone for help or accepting support when it's offered doesn't just mean failing your own high standards. It also means admitting your inadequacies and showing yourself as a failure. So I think that that is something that I have struggled with for a long time. And I've had to be able to talk to myself and say, it's okay to ask for help. You
Mm-hmm.
can't do it all by yourself,
No one
and
can.
no one
Literally,
can.
no one is out here living their life truly successfully with like you. It takes a village. I think
Yeah.
that in every part of life, it takes a village.
And it goes back to that term self made. So I always struggle with that term because okay, yes, you grew to a certain point, right? But you've had to have help along the way completely.
Yeah.
Like there's not one person that can say that nobody ever
Yeah, I
helped
mean,
them as they
we're
move
not the
forward on their
founders of
path.
Rome. Our parents didn't leave us in the, I'm bringing up this reference just because someone said it today. Like Romulus and Remus, our parents didn't drop us in the woods and then we were expected to build this giant city. No one was raised by wolves in modern, not that I know of, at least in modern society. Everyone needs help with something. And I think the term self-made, I don't love it. I like it to the extent that it shows who's a nepotism baby and who's not. And I think that if you have anything going for you nepotism wise, use it. Everyone else says use your connections.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but that whole idea of self-made is just saying like you did this all yourself, and it's discrediting all the work that others put around you. And they did the work too.
Yeah. I kind of feel like it should be self-help, self-made with some help.
Yeah, it should be
Right.
because you had a little bit of help. I mean, were you the one cooking
Yeah.
every single dinner, every single night that you were working your ass off to start this business? No.
No. I mean, definitely I've had help from many people. It's the understanding that, like, and really giving myself grace to say I can't do it all by myself. I don't want to do it all by myself, but for so long I felt like that's what I needed to do, or else I would consider myself a failure. Not that anybody else would even see that, but it's just how I saw it, right? It's all about how we see ourselves.
100%. And that's what I've really been working on recently with myself is being like, well, no one else cares. So why am I caring?
Hmm.
Like, especially I've been working a lot on my body image recently. And especially when it comes to clothes, like it's not fitting you exactly right. There's one little spot on the shirt I don't like. No one is looking at it.
No.
You're
Yeah.
the only one that's nitpicking your flaws.
Yeah, and it's funny because your dad said that to me before. I was like hyper focused on something, like somebody wasn't responding to me or someone wasn't, and he's like, you know what? People are busy. They're not thinking
Yeah.
about you right now. They're not
Yeah.
thinking about you. So like take a step back, take a breath, and I guarantee you'll get a response. But the same thing with how we when we look in the mirror and what we see. Like what we see is completely different than what anybody else sees. Other
100%.
than the spot on my head right now where everybody's like, "Are you okay? What's wrong with your head?" I have a skin cancer on there and I'm using this chemotherapy cream and everybody has noticed it and everybody keeps asking me, which is so funny because usually people don't like to have those conversations. I
Yeah.
guess I guess maybe because I'm like so open about stuff, they're like, "Hey, what's wrong with you?"
I guess that's
Yeah.
probably it, honestly, though.
Yeah.
Because, but I mean, if you think about it, if it was a zit on your forehead, would someone be like, "Hey, what's wrong with you?" And then you,
No.
I think
No. It's
maybe it's
just
because it looks like a medical procedure rather than just a pimple,
yeah. Well, because it
and because
is.
you're open about it, you've
Yeah.
talked about everything.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, next one.
The
The
ex-
expert.
this
You want to
is
read that?
yeah, and I think before I start this, although I don't know how much imposter syndrome my dad suffers from,
Mm.
but I think he would fit in this one the best.
I think he does
Uh,
suffer from it,
100% because
you know?
everyone does.
Yeah.
There's just no way.
Yeah.
Before you consider your work a success, you want to learn everything there is to know on the topic. You might spend so much time pursuing your quest for more information that you end up having to devote more time to your main task. Since you believe you should have all the answers, you might consider yourself a fraud or failure when you can't answer a question or encounter some knowledge you previously missed. Um,
Completely, completely true. And you know what? It reminds me of when people ask him if he plays golf. And he won't play golf because in order for him to play golf, he has to spend so much time, and I want to say, perfecting it, but it's not perfecting it, so much time so that he feels really good about what he's doing. He wouldn't be able to work. Like, there's no way he could play
well, and
golf.
that's
And
like that's why he's so damn good at neurosurgery is because he spent his entire life researching everything there is to know. And it's not like he stopped. He'll tell you now that he's calmed down a little bit. He doesn't read every single edition of neurosurgery, whatever month, whatever news articles they sent out. But I mean, you could ask him anything on the topic and he'd be very well versed. And I know if he wouldn't well versed, he would be very, very upset. He would feel like a fraud because he missed
yeah,
the question or missed some knowledge,
yeah.
which sucks
So,
because he's a freaking neurosurgeon. Who
yeah,
cares? You're literally a brain surgeon, dude.
yeah. But he's really like Dr. House. Remember that show, Dr. House?
Yes.
Yeah, where it's beyond the neurosurgery, it's the actual patient themselves. Like, he figures out like these weird things that people have that has nothing to do with neurosurgery, but they come into his office and they're struggling with something. And inquiring minds want to know. So he works really hard to make sure he can figure out whatever it is that's wrong with them.
Which makes him a great doctor,
Yeah.
but it's also unfortunately comes with like negative side effects of not feeling enough when you can't answer a question.
Right. For sure. Okay. Last one.
I
The
changed my
superhero. Oh, you
mind, by the
changed?
way, for
Okay.
the superhero after reading this one. I think
Hmm.
Millie falls into this one.
Okay. The superhero, you link competence to your ability to succeed in every role you hold. You're right. Student, friend, employee, or parent, failing to successfully navigate the demands of these roles simply proves, in your opinion, your inadequacy. To succeed, then, you push yourself to the limit, expending as much energy as possible in every role. Still, even this maximum effort may not resolve your imposter feelings. You might think, I should be able to do more, or this should be easier. Yeah, I definitely can see that. I think that, and I think there's a lot of people that fall into this category.
Thinking you have to do every role you hold right, which is crazy. Who is doing that?
Well, people want to be doing that. I mean, that's the whole thing, and that's
Exactly.
the
And
struggle. And
everyone wants to be. I think the common theme throughout all of these is I'm not enough.
yeah,
And every single one of these is I'm not enough. And yeah, like I think it sucks to hear, and maybe this is a bad take, but you're not going to be enough to do everything you want to accomplish, and that's fine. You can't be a doctor and a lawyer and this amazing super mom that goes into the classroom for 8 hours a day volunteering. That's just not possible.
do you think social media kind of makes this worse? Because I can tell you, like I do on my social media, I post the things that I'm doing. So whether I'm speaking, whether I'm,
Yep.
I'm working on a new book, whatever I'm doing, I post it on there. So then people get this idea that I like am just knocking it out of the park all the time. And then when they say that to me, I feel like, oh, I'm an imposter. Like, yes, I'm doing well, but I could still be doing better. That's what I always say. I could still be doing more. I could still be doing better. And I just think that that social media piece makes it more
100.
difficult.
I mean, this is a recently coined term within the social media era, is that the idea of FOMO, so fear of missing out. And that can totally be applied to just social life as well as professional life. I mean, I had the most crippling anxiety when going on LinkedIn up until probably a month ago because I was so stressed out and didn't feel like enough because I hadn't gotten my dream internship yet. My resumes didn't look like their resumes. These people are working their butts off and I'm doing nothing. So it
That's
definitely, yeah.
but that's how
Social
you're perceiving it, but that's not what was
100%.
happening.
And that
Yeah.
is what I've started to like kind of dissect people's posts
Mm,
just for my own peace of mind and being like, hey, like, yeah, they worked their ass off for this, but they're only showing the best side.
right.
Yeah, they work their asses off for this position, but do you know how many hours a week they're working? Like that's insane. And that might be good for them, but that's not the position I want to be in. But I think that FOMO is something that right now we think of only in like a social Instagram setting, or like, oh, they're going out and
Mm.
I'm not, which is totally valid. But LinkedIn is where I feel it more because I totally feel like I'm never doing enough when I'm on that platform.
It's interesting that you say that. Yeah, every time I'm on there, there is somebody I know winning another award or someone I
Yep.
know being asked to speak at these massive events. And yeah, I do. I get that. Like, okay, maybe I don't like to look on social media as much. Yes, I have to do it for my job, but I don't do it correctly. So what I'm told is that I have to comment on all these people's posts all the time, and it gets overwhelming. Like I think
It's
that it
it's
turns
so
you off a bit,
ridiculous
right?
that there's a way to use social media.
Well, it's gaming the system, right?
100%. And I think, not that I know anything that was inside. Is it Zuckerberg? He was Facebook. I don't think well, I mean, he's not a great dude to begin with, but I'm sure that the concept of Facebook when it was first invented wasn't, oh, let's like have a platform to show you how you one up your friends and how
Yeah.
successful you're doing. It was a way to keep in touch with people. And I think to some extent we've lost that. What I started doing recently is when I see something that upsets me or see something that's giving me this FOMO, I mute their stories. I don't block them. I don't unfollow because I know that will cause more drama than's
Uh,
necessary. But I can mute
correct.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing how it works though. But I definitely feel that even now. I mean, I constantly am trying to work past those feelings, but and
Yeah.
sometimes the way to work past it is to mute their stories or is to stay off for a bit or whatever
Yep.
it takes to make you feel better and realize that what you're doing is enough. It is more than enough. The things that you're doing in your life, like you can't look at anybody else and say, "Oh, I'm not at this level, so therefore I'm a failure." And it's a really hard thing though in today's society, and I especially for your age and younger, there's this it's this increased pressure of everything is out there, and
Mhm.
it's really hard to kind of level up to that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some statistics because I think the statistics are crazy. So there was a study by KPMG. I think it was in 2021, might have been 2022. So 75% of executive women report having personally experienced imposter syndrome at certain points in their career. Now, they actually think the number is higher than that, okay?
I was just about
Because
to say,
I
you know, it
I
was really sad that I was like, wow, I just feel like that's not right. I feel like 100% of women have probably experienced imposter syndrome at certain points in their career.
yeah, I don't see how I don't know anybody that hasn't. I mean, Maya Angelou, she wrote an amazing, there's a quote, I got to look it up, but there's a quote where she says basically like every time she would walk into a room, she was still expecting the people in the room to realize that she was a phony. Like that's how she felt. Like
Yeah,
imagine she's so
she's
successful,
literally
such a,
Maya Angelou, bro.
you know, the an incredible writer, but she still felt like a phony. And that was like a shocking thing for me to read. But then at the end of the day, that when you say that, when 75% say, I think it has to be higher than that.
Yeah, because
So
if
it,
I was in a room with 100 women, I'm sure I could get a not necessarily them calling it imposter syndrome, but a story
right.
of where they felt like not enough in their jobs. Right now, I'm working at NBC, and you know the big NBC headquarters is 30 Rock, and I mean there's a whole TV show called 30 Rock. When I put my outfit on in my work outfit on every single morning, I feel like I'm playing dress up. And when I go up that elevator, I feel like I'm not supposed to be there. I feel like I mean, I am just an intern in the end of the day, obviously, but I feel like I snuck in.
Yeah, it's not just an intern. I mean, that's how you move forward,
Oh,
right?
well, that's I was saying that to a friend the other day at work, and she's like, "Did you know 50,000 plus people applied for this job?"
Wow.
I was like, "No, I didn't." And there's
Okay.
probably 500 interns, and that's a lot of interns, but so is 50,000 plus
50,000
people.
people for 500 jobs is huge. So yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, we got to start giving ourselves more credit for the things that we're accomplishing, big or small. It doesn't really matter.
yeah,
Okay. So, 74% of executive women believe that their male counterparts do not experience feelings of self doubt as much as female leaders do. And again, I believe that. And I think that that goes back to the whole bias in the workplace. And, things still have
that
to change.
100%. And business, I will say, I feel like it's 10 years behind. I mean, even marketing is a little bit like more, I don't want to say chill, but even in finance offices, women still they're required to wear heels in some offices. Like that is like 10, 20 years behind. You should wear heels because you want to, not because you have to.
I had a friend tell me that he's an attorney and he hired another an attorney who's a female to work in the office to work with him, and they went to litigation on something, and she is literally wearing heels and stockings and on her feet the entire day. And he said, that has to be uncomfortable. And she said, well, it's always been required everywhere else I've worked. He's like, take off the stockings, put on some comfortable shoes. That is not required here. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy when you think about that. But there
Yeah.
are a lot of places that still, I mean, I can't name them, but I've heard that there's still a lot of places that have these crazy rules and that women feel like they have to follow those rules in order to stay an employee at that company.
Yeah. 100%. That's like that movie. What is it? Hidden Figures. I see
Oh,
that
yeah.
that scene on social media a lot where she's like, I have to have everything neat up and a string of pearls. Well, I don't own a string of pearls. That is just what is expected. You have, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't have to look neat in a workplace. Like, I think that you shouldn't be able to show up in like a backwards cap and a dirty t-shirt. I mean, don't do that, but there shouldn't be ridiculous dress code requirements that both or all genders they if there's a dress code requirement, it should be applicable to all genders.
Right. If you have to wear a suit, you have to wear a suit for everybody. That's fine.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be that women have to wear heels. I mean, men don't have to wear heels.
No, men do
It's very
not.
it's very hard to wear
Not
heels.
that
I mean,
loafers are incredibly comfortable, but
right, but
like they're
some
better than
women love
heels.
wearing heels. Some women love it. I mean, for
But
me, it just
that's
makes my knees
that's
swell.
It should be
I'm
the
getting old.
yeah, I can't walk in them. I mean, I
Yeah.
can barely walk straight. I can't walk straight. I don't know why I said that. I can't walk straight in the first place, so me in heels is a disaster. It's good that I'm 5'10". Let's just say that.
Yeah. Okay, so um a couple more statistics on this. 81% believe they of women believe they put more pressure on themselves not to fail than men do. But I mean, yeah, I mean,
Oh,
so you're
yeah.
going to put in the extra hours, you're going to do all these things and you're still not giving yourself credit for it. So here's where they talk about the negative side effects associated with frequent imposter syndrome. Um, so the trickle down impact translates to greater levels of procrastination. 63% said they have greater levels of procrastination because for fear of they're going to mess it up. Longer working hours. 57% of people said that they work longer because of it. Higher staff
Totally
turnover.
can see that.
44%. And a loss in productivity, 41%. So it's crazy. And also
I
applying for internal promotions,
I think
30,
that one is crazy.
39%.
Yeah, implying for internal promotions, because what I've learned through my like 2 weeks being in corporate is that they want to hire within the company.
Mm-hmm.
It makes their job 10 times easier. There's no new onboarding. You're familiar with all the systems, but it's something we avoid because of this fear of failure.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about college students for a bit because I thought this was pretty interesting to look at
Mm-hmm.
with college students because so many times when people think of imposter syndrome, they think about it as in the workplace. They
Yeah,
don't think about it at home, but it completely is applicable at
100%.
home
I mean,
when people
even
are
like
raising their
within
kids.
stay-at-home mom circles, I'm
Yeah,
sure you.
you know,
I'm obviously not. I'm not a mother, but imposter syndrome is applicable everywhere.
yeah. But in terms of college students, so this was a study from 2019 by Brigham Young University, and it found that 20% of college students experience imposter syndrome during their time in college. So that's one out of every five college students. So, and
I think it
obviously,
has to be higher than that.
well, this is 2019. So, I mean, this is pre COVID. So I think that,
COVID
things have
definitely messed
probably,
everything up.
you know, made things worse. But
Yeah.
so even with that though, when you're going to classes, like you're not working, I mean, you might be working somewhere, but you're it's all about classes and you're still feeling imposter syndrome.
100%. I feel this a lot. So I'm in an honors program, and I have consistently for the last, this would be my 4th year in this honors program. I have felt like I am the dumbest person in that program. I have
Ugh.
felt there's no reason for me to be in this, but like that's ridiculous. I mean, I've been on dean's. I'm on dean's council. I was hand chosen to be on dean's council. I've made dean's list every single semester at being at Fordham. I have like a 3.9 GPA. I mean, I don't know how much better I could get than that, but yet I still feel as though I am not, I'm one of the dumbest people in the room.
But why?
I don't know. It's not
Yeah.
like anyone's ever said it to me. I
Yeah.
don't think anyone would ever be like, "Oh, you're stupid." Like I
Yeah.
don't first of all, why would you ever say that to someone? Mind your own business. Everyone is good at their own thing. Yeah, I might not be good at math, but I can whoop your ass in English. And like that everyone has their own thing they're good at, but also, especially in a classroom setting, no one is. I compare myself to myself when I'm in a classroom. I don't compare myself to others.
Well, I mean, that's huge because that's what we should be doing, right? We should be looking
Yes.
at how we can looking at what we're already doing, how we can maybe improve on that, but not changing ourselves to be like anybody else. Again, my favorite quote that I made is that, you know, we don't need to change who we are. We need to change the way we see ourselves. And that completely ties
Yes.
into this whole conversation because each of us brings incredible value, but we have to give ourselves credit for it and not say it's because of luck or because someone else did it for us or that's not how it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know where this like idea comes from. It's not anything that I've been taught. I mean, I didn't grow up in a household where I was told I wasn't enough. All the comparison games I did in my head growing up were because
Mhm.
of me. It's not like you guys enforced this at all. If anything, you wanted us to go out and be our own people and not to compare ourselves to our siblings. And it's rather hard. I mean, growing up with 5 siblings, of course, at some point you're going to compare. Like, oh well, how'd you do on the SAT, or how'd you do on this exam? But I mean, you guys didn't enforce that. That's completely on like me as a person. And I don't know where it comes from besides, I mean, societal expectations, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's across the board. I don't I think it is nurture versus nature. Like I think that we have gotten into an environment where everybody is competing for everything, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so you feel that you need to make it to the top, not you, but people feel like they need to
Yeah.
make it to the top. And if they make it to the top, they don't feel like it's because they did anything right. They
Yeah.
just feel like, well, oh, how lucky did I get? Or and then some of the people say that the reason they struggle with imposter syndrome is because they never expected to be so successful. And that is so shocking to them that they can't accept it. And so it's really like one of those backwards things. It's so interesting.
I think that is it ties into that idea of manifestation. And I think we've had this conversation before where manifestation isn't just like some magical force. You're putting in the work to do it, it's gonna get done.
Yeah. When you focus on when people talk about manifesting things and saying, okay, well, I'm going to be on 10 stages next month, whatever I want to pick.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the only way I'm going to make that happen is to put in the work to make it happen. It
Yeah.
doesn't just it's not just luck. It's because we are working very hard to make
Yeah.
these things happen.
Manifesting isn't just luck, it's the effort that you put in. Like I didn't manifest my job at NBC. And sure, I can tell myself I did that, but I did work my butt off to get it. And you work your butt off to be speaking at these gigs and getting your name out there.
Yeah, it just but it takes time and I think sometimes people get really frustrated quickly. I mean, you were getting really frustrated right before you
100%.
got this job. You're like, I'll never get anything. I'm not good at anything. I was like, oh my gosh, who are you? Because
Yeah.
that's not true.
But
But,
I don't know, it's just no one likes to experience rejection. And I think
mm,
part of imposter syndrome comes with rejection. And I wish that there were more opportunities in life, especially as children, to experience rejection on a small scale rather than having your first big one being college. Because that sucks. Like,
yeah. I mean, there are certain things where where kids are applying to different sports teams and they don't get accepted on them, that kinds
yeah.
of thing. You know, those are hard. But I do think that our kids don't fail anymore, right? We're like, and I think things are changing. I mean, the participation trophies, I think those are going away now, or at least scaling back because you can't be a winner for everything, right? So
Yeah. And then saying, like, growing up, hearing that you're a winner for everything and then losing, that's literally half of what these like types of imposter syndrome people were. Half of these were, well, you're too embarrassed to fail, but if you've never failed before, how are you going to know?
yeah, I mean, so I think that's where it starts is that
Mm-hmm.
our kids aren't failing like they used to. And I shouldn't even say that because I can tell you that my mom completely suffered with imposter syndrome. She still
100%.
does. So, but she did have a very tough mother who
Yes.
if my mom would come home with a 95 on a test, her mother would say, "Well, why didn't you get 100?"
Yeah.
And she meant it. And
Yeah, it
so for
wasn't
my
just like a joke.
mom, it was that idea of you have to be perfect, which perfection doesn't exist. We've said this many times. But for her, it was always that she was never, you know, never meeting expectations or never exceeding expectations, whether she was meeting them or not. And she always was. I mean, the woman went to medical school in 1961. She grew up on a farm
Yeah.
and
The
she
odds
was
were
the
against her in
yeah,
every sense, yet she still felt like she was the imposter in the end of the day. In the end of the
yeah.
day.
Yeah, completely. And even now, like we'll be working on something like online banking or whatever it is, and she'll be like, oh, I'm just so dumb. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And I say this to her
Yeah.
every single time when she does. I'm like, are you kidding me? I said, first of all, you went to medical school in 1961. There were five
Yeah.
women in your class, 120 people in the class, five of them were women. Okay, you learned how to fly a plane when you were 18 years old. Okay, that's crazy right there, right?
Yeah. It's
And
just she's such a cool lady, and it like hurts me that she doesn't understand that she's a cool lady. But I think there's so many people like that in our country that, or just in the world, that they undermined all of the cool things that they've succeeded at and the accomplishments they have in life because they can't do one simple thing. Man, I just taught my friend who is quite literally working at the bank that she has account for that she can deposit a check over the phone and she doesn't have to go in person.
Oh, she didn't know you could do that?
Nope. She was like, yeah, I have to go drop off this check. And I was like, well, is it for less than $10,000? And she was like, yeah, why? I was like, you can do that on your phone. Like, you can just take a picture. Mind blown. So, like, you learn new things every day. It doesn't make you stupid.
No, it's just you have to
You're
learn
learning.
them. It's like anything else. Like I was talking to somebody, and I don't remember who and I don't remember when, but recently about the 20,000 hour rule, right? It's that Malcolm Gladwell, I believe
Mm-hmm.
he's the one who wrote that book, and I forget the name of the book, but basically, in order to get really good at something, you have to put in 20,000 hours of work, even if you have natural talent. So think about this. How many people are willing to commit that? Because a lot of times people start something, they don't think they're good enough, they stop, and then they're like, oh, I was just never good at it. Well, when you
Yeah.
look at the people who are really successful at a sport or at singing, or they had to work to get there. Like you have to put in the time.
Yeah.
And I'm
I
thinking
think
of
it's
the singer
um,
with the red hair,
Ed Sheeran. I knew you were going
Ed
to bring up Ed
Sheeran.
Sheeran
Yeah,
because he always likes to say, and I'm sure this was true, he couldn't sing growing up. So he just taught himself how and he worked his butt off to be able to sing.
yeah. I
Like,
mean,
yeah,
it's a prime example of, and of course, I don't know if that story is
how true it is,
what
whatever.
what what does he couldn't sing mean, right? And then he taught
Exactly.
himself. But again, when you really want something and you put in the hours and you make it happen, like that is success. And if you don't and you fail, you move on. But you can't let that failure keep you in this place and time and
Well,
say, well, I wasn't good enough.
and what I say right now to myself is something that I'm also trying to work through is I am really reluctant to pick up a new hobby right now. I would really love a new hobby. My dream hobby would be gardening, not possible in the current living situation I am.
You could
But
get
so then it
one
was like,
you could get one plant and therefore you'd be successful. Maybe.
yeah,
I would
but
kill
my
it.
room doesn't really get sunlight, so I just don't want to raise a plant in this environment.
Yes, I see.
Um, I would really love to pick up crocheting or knitting, but I'm worried that I'm going to spend the money to buy this stuff and I'm not going to be good at the first time. And so I'm never going to pick it up again.
Yeah, that's a hard one because those things aren't easy. I mean, my mom taught me how to do some of it. I never taught you guys how to do it because I sucked at it,
She
but
taught us a little bit, but like
yeah, you got to
I want
really
to do it
want that.
so badly.
Okay, well, maybe you should do
But
it.
I know, but it's more of just like, well, I'm afraid of failing. So I don't want to start because I'm afraid that I'm going to fail.
Okay, well, you get a crochet hook, needle crochet hook, and you get yarn. Crocheting, I think, is easier than knitting. Knitting,
I think,
there's
yeah, I
two
think I'll probably
instruments. I would
crochet.
stab myself with that.
Yeah, you
So yeah,
know.
and then you start with making one line, and then you connect a second line to it, and then you end up making a scarf. Like,
Yeah, and I just kind of want something to keep my hands busy while I watch TV so my screen time goes down because unfortunately my brain needs to be doing two things at once.
I think you
So
should do it. I think you should do it.
I
Okay,
think I
we don't.
should too. I've just been afraid.
Yeah, well, I think you should do it. Let's talk real quick about how to deal with this because
Which
we
I
only
think
have a few minutes
we've
left.
been
Yeah, yeah,
infusing throughout the episode, but
yeah. So some strategies.
acknowledging your feelings is a huge one and talking to people about your feelings is a huge one because often for me I feel as though I'm the only one experiencing this,
Mm,
and once you talk to someone else and realize, hey, like you're also having these emotions, oh my gosh, like not only does it validate it, and not to say that you ever need your emotions validated, you're having these emotions, they're valid, but it gives you like a way to work through them because you're not alone.
yeah. So that is, I think, the biggest step. First, you have to say, I'm struggling, right?
Yup.
We don't like to admit that we're struggling, but you gotta
No.
admit that you're struggling because guess what? Look around the room, everyone else is struggling too. So you are definitely not alone. But what's crazy is a statistic from one of the studies said that when asked, 94% of people said that that they haven't and they won't talk about imposter syndrome at works because they're either embarrassed, they fear that the manager will see them as a less capable employee. I mean, there's so many reasons why that
Yeah.
but they won't talk about it. So again, we're keeping in these negative feelings and emotions that we need to be able to move past. And so
Yeah.
step one is talking about it. Step two,
Building the connection. I mean, that goes to back to talking about it. Avoid giving in to the urge to do everything yourself, and then instead build this network of connections of support that you can rely on, whether that comes in the form of classmates, academic peers, coworkers, or even family and friends that might not understand the exact situation. They can still offer you guidance and support,
Absolutely. And then challenge your doubts. So,
which is so hard to do.
right. But ask yourself, okay, what did I really, was it just luck that got me here? And then you look back and say, look at all the hours of work that I did to get
Yes.
this job. Look at all the hours of work I did to complete this paper and get an A plus on it, whatever it is. Like you have to challenge those, like, oh, I just got lucky, or whatever you're thinking about it, that you didn't deserve it. That
Yeah.
look at the work that you put into it. Sometimes people do get lucky with certain things. Okay, winning the lottery, but you're not putting work into that, right?
Yeah. I would say
You know?
most things in life you're putting work in, and then maybe you got lucky, but most of the time you put in work to get to the point of even getting lucky.
Yeah. I mean, it's about putting in the work. So, I mean, that challenge your doubts. When you're thinking that way, think, okay, is this real? Am I just making this up? And a lot of times you're just putting this on yourself, even though you're doing everything that you need to be doing to get this promotion, to get this raise.
So
You're going
one
to
of
say
the
something.
questions I've been asked in interviews recently is what is the thing that you are most proud of? And so I've really had to like go back and examine things in my life. And that really had me think, wow, like that wasn't just luck. I worked hard to grow and change whatever position I was in or whatever. Like I think my most recent interview I was talking about being a camp counselor, and that wasn't luck. I mean, it wasn't even easy. I didn't even, but just a lot of it. Once you have to examine it, you realize all the steps it took you to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last one, other than the first one, I think the last one is such a key piece. And we've been talking about this for the majority of this episode. It's
The
really
majority
about,
of all of our episodes.
yes, yes, not comparing yourself to others, because
Don't play
all
the
that
comparison
does,
game.
it just puts you in a rabbit hole. And I mean, trust me, I did it for years. And there's times where I still see myself thinking, oh, why didn't I get that? Or why? And then I'm like, stop,
Yeah.
like take a step back and,
Yo, yeah, exactly. You don't know
you
what
know,
someone's had to do to go through that. You don't know what choices. Everyone is different. Everyone's the life story, upbringing, background, and whatever you're examining is different. There's not
yeah,
one person that has had like they're identical backstories with each other. There's just no way.
yeah. I mean, so when you think about it, you may look at people and they think that they have it all together, but you don't know their story. Like you have no
Yeah.
idea until you ask them. And that's really important. I mean, this all tie together. I remember someone saying to me one time, like, you that it's exactly that. You have it all together. You have the best life. I don't know how you do it. You manage 6 kids, and all of these, and you're always trying to do something different. And I was like, but that's what you see from the outside. What you don't see is how much I struggle, right? And
Yeah.
now when people say, I don't know how you do it, and especially with the 6 kids, now that you guys are older, it's, completely different. But I would say, yeah, some days I don't do a very good job. That's just how it works,
Yeah.
being able to admit that, some days just suck, and that's how it is. And
I saw a fun graphic on Instagram. If I find it again, I'll show it to you. It was showing like the learning curve, but then it zoomed up on the learning curve and how it's not just like an upward thing. You have your ups and downs and your ups and downs to make that smooth line.
oh, that's
So
really interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
I like that a lot because yeah, not every day is going to be a good day, and that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
You're still going to be successful because you're working towards it.
Yeah. So
I have a good
that's,
quote for today,
yeah.
actually,
Okay, good. Is it,
which
it's from
it
your,
yeah, for my calendar. Most of us let our internal condition weigh heavily on what we do, but the truly great performers are great precisely because they've learned to experience those feelings while sidestepping the inclination to act upon them.
mm.
So relevant to our episode.
Wow, that's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's so true. Like we have to be able to move forward. As soon as we get stuck on something, it just spirals downhill from there. So remind yourself, like, don't compare yourself to others. Understand that everyone around you is struggling as well, and be okay with talking about things.
Talk
Because as
about it.
soon as you start sharing, you realize that you're helping someone else, but you're also helping yourself.
Yes.
So important.
Yes. So important. Every single emotion that I've worked through, I've talked about. Didn't do it by myself.
Yeah. We can't do it alone. I've learned that. I mean, I wanted to be the soloist, but it doesn't work that way. And
No.
there's no way, even in a parenting relationship, like your child has to help as well. Like
Oh
there's no
yeah.
soloist to any of it. So it's
Even the
constantly
solo
working
singer on
together.
stage has a piano backing her up.
Hmm. So true. There's always backup. So use your backup. It's so important.
Yep.
Okay, final thoughts. I think I just said mine.
My final thoughts are I wish I could talk to every single person in the world that experienced this and tell them that it's normal, or unfortunately it's normal, not that it should be, and that they're going to be okay and they're incredibly successful just for just being themselves and being who they are in that moment.
Yeah, and getting up in the morning and pushing through the day. I mean,
Huge
that is,
accomplishment.
yeah, right,
My
right.
bed is so comfy.
Oh, well,
You know
mine,
that.
I just don't sleep. But yeah, give yourself props for the things that you're getting done every day. So thank you so much for joining us today. We'll be back soon with our next episode, and have a great day.
Bye, guys.